the committee regarding limitations of on-street parking in the Eagle Park neighborhood. Since the council meeting, we've had a new request from the HOA board, so it was timely. We went ahead and added that. It's in your packet for the intersection of Assembly Street and John Galt Lane. I'll go over this briefly, and then certainly you've got folks in the audience, and you're welcome to hear from them if you'd like. So the committee heard several areas of where on-street parking should be limited to one side of the street. At your last meeting, City Council approved all but one area, and then as I just mentioned, we've got a request for a new area. We'll take these one at a time. I'd rather start with the new area first, because I think that'll be less controversial than the other. But you see the two ovals. The one is this is a screen, so my laser pointer is not going to work. But the intersection of Assembly Street and John Galt Lane. John Galt Lane is an alley there on the kind of the left-hand side of the screen, and you see in your packet there's a picture where if you're parked on Assembly Street in this sort of yellow rectangle, and someone is trying to pull out of John Galt Lane onto Assembly Street and you're parked there, it restricts the movement. It can be a safety concern. So the request from the HOA, and I believe, Alan, you've been out there.
Yes, sir.
And concur to make that small area no parking. That way it's not blocking turning movements going on to or coming out of John Galt Lane. So that's one request from the HOA that the police department is supporting. And then the second item is the part of the City Council did not take action on, which is restricting parking in the curve of Assembly Street between the intersection of Lexington Street and the driveway of Belmont Central Elementary School. And the same concerns that we discussed at the committee meeting and the City Council still exist, so I don't want to rehash all of that. But since then, we have found new information, which is actually old information. We went back and actually had a request from one of the residents that sort of triggered this searching our archives. We went back and found the old plans when Eagle Park was approved in 2005. Here's the plat for Phase 1 of Eagle Park, which includes that initial block there from Eagle Road, of Assembly Street from Eagle Road to Lexington Street. They actually had to record it again. There was a note on this plat that said that the alleys were public rights of way, which alleys are private, so they had to re-record it. So this is the official plat now that is private right of way for the alley. And here is the engineer drawings for this first block of Eagle Park with Assembly Street. And what is pertinent for the discussion is here's the cross-section that was submitted by the developers, engineers, approved by the City Council, or approved by the City staff, excuse me, which is consistent with the overall schematic plan that the City Council approved 2005-ish. That shows Assembly Street has a 50-foot right-of-way, but a 24-foot street measured front of curb to front of curb, and that contains two 12-foot traffic lanes. So Assembly Street was not intended to have on-street parking on it at all, according to the design, which, you know, is, if you don't have parking on it, the street width works. So it's only when you add parking on one side or the other, or in some cases both sides, that's when it's too narrow. So we just gave you this as sort of background information. I wish we had thought to look up the original plans before your last meeting, but we didn't. So I just give this to you as information that the neighborhood was not intended to have parking on Assembly Street at all in this area. So with that, we've got the HOA request to have parking on the one side of Assembly Street in that curve area, and then the police department recommendation, which I certainly support, is no parking on Assembly Street between the intersection of the elementary school and the driveway of the elementary school and the intersection with Lexington Street. So I hope that I summarized that accurately, but you've got the police department and you've got residents here that I'm sure would like to speak to you. Or if you have any questions of me or staff.
Let's hear from the residents.
Yeah, we'll hear from the residents first and then from our police, so we can, that way we'll have all the information.
So if anybody wants to speak on it.
What's the end result of this meeting? Are we voting? Is there voting on something?
We will make a recommendation to the council as to what we think is the best option.
So it'll go back to city council on February the 3rd for final approval.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to speak.
We'll speak. So I was a resident, I'm Kathy Brown at 1054 Assembly Street. So I went to the planning board. My daughter is an architect in Charlotte, and she said to go to the planning board and just ask, and zoning, and ask them what was the intentions of the neighborhood. And from what I got from them, this is not your conventional neighborhood. This is a TND design, which means that it's a traditional neighborhood design, which the intent is that it is made more compact, the streets are smaller, and at that time, I have a letter here to a Mr. Turner from Adrian stating in 2008 that the neighborhood was approved by right and has no conditional district rezoning or conditional use permit is necessary. The approval plan remains in place and there are no zoning violations associated with this neighborhood. The follow-up was with the council meeting. Mayor Joyce entertained a motion to approve, and Eagle Park Development was the schematic plan was accepted as presented. So with that being said, is there not some kind of grandfather clause? Because we have two of these developments in Belmont. We have Eagle Park in Kingsley, and you know, if there is an issue via the law, this was all approved at one time. And now it's being changed with no alternative backup as to where we're all going to park. You're taking, you know, voting on taking away all this parking, but where are we all going to park? So there's no plan in place to restore our parking. So is there not any way to do some kind of an agreement to say, okay, well, if the road is too narrow to achieve one side parking, can we not have the HOA put, there's a green space between the street and the sidewalk. Can they not make spaces so it's kind of recessed from the road for parking? Because right now, what I'm hearing is, no, it's not allowed, but yet it was approved at one time, so are we standing any other grandfather clause? Is there not some other way we can compromise and say, well, let's give the homeowners that bought with the intent that there was in this neighborhood an alternative, and we'll, even though it's going to cost a little money, make some areas or at least a few parking spots available, whether they on that green area from the street, between the street and the sidewalk.
Are they green space that is part of the green space for the neighborhood, or what are you
Not
talking
for the
about?
neighborhood, just where the street is. So you have the
Well,
street.
you guys could do that, though. I mean,
Right,
that's not what
right now they have trees, and but they have a 6 foot between the street and the sidewalk. It's either 6 or 8 feet, I believe. And you could have an inlet go in there for cars that would help to get at least the cars off the road. But I'm asking that the council don't remove it permanently until we have something in plan for all of us residents that bought with the intention that this was what we purchased. The property in this neighborhood with parking, until they have something, you know, an alternate plan to restore some of that for us. It may not be a lot, but at least it would be some. So that's all I'm asking, because I don't know, that the zoning board said they couldn't give comment whether we were in some kind of grandfather clause for
No,
this.
because what he's looking at was the plan as is, and there was not parking there, so we're talking about, but it's not a grandfather situation.
Right, well, I know when I asked, I said my daughter works for Novus Architects in Charlotte, and I did ask her about it, and she said that when any drawing is submitting to the planning and zoning, the only time that you don't really necessarily have street parking on a planned schematic for street parking. You'll have it for parking lot parking or driveway parking, but you don't necessarily have it for street parking. The only time it's really listed on a street parking is if it narrows in, like one end of our Assembly Street, it goes down and it kind of goes in for parking. She said that's the only place it's really going to show for parking.
Okay, well, Adrian, I don't know, where do we stand as far as policy on this kind of thing?
So the neighborhood, it is,
It's okay.
yes, so it's different zoning, it's T and D zoning,
Right.
it's not general residential. So it is, it's compliant with that T and D zoning with more compact, obviously, development. So it's built according to the ordinance. It didn't, it was just approved by right as a major development plan, didn't have to have special zoning.
That's the letter.
Thank you. So, the letter that Ms. Brown read looks like it's a zoning determination letter from 2008, which is when the neighborhood went into foreclosure during the recession, and a new development firm wanted to buy it and fill it out. So that's consistent with what you do with a zoning letter, is say that it's built according to plans. There are no special approvals needed, no violations. So that's what that is. So it is built according to the plans, which is what I showed you earlier. So it was the intent of the neighborhood was not to have on-street parking on Assembly Street. If you'll notice, this first block is fed by the alley, and there are driveways providing parking and access from for all the houses from the alley. Most of the houses have detached garages, not all of them do. And you see in the curve there, two houses that just have a parking pad maybe, one house that has an attached garage, but they do have parking in the rear, which is how the neighborhood was designed, with parking in the rear of the houses, not on the street. So we've not had the street posted no parking. So it's been used sort of informally with on-street parking for the last 15 years.
I guess we've got to remember, we're not the ones who requested this. We're doing this because the
Right.
HOA requested it. So when you're looking at the whole picture, and I go back to what I think I said at the beginning of the other meeting, is that we should just go with the speed limit if we're not going to go with this whole plan. Because if I'm the homeowner, I do not want you taking one side either, if that's the way we're going to play this. So I don't know where the other two stand, but this is a concern to me. To me, we either do the whole thing or we go back to just looking at the speed limit piece of it. Because, we're not looking at the total safety package if we do it piecemeal, which is what this is. Not that I don't want the homeowners to have parking, it's just, as I said, it came to us as that request. So I think our policemen have spoken pretty much in favor of the safety part rather than the parking piece.
I appreciate you guys coming back to listen to this. My name's Lisa Jenkins, and I live at 1060 Assembly. I beg to differ with you, because I don't have a driveway.
Which house is yours?
She could not get there.
Is it on the outer loop or the inner
The
loop?
second,
The inner.
the inner, and that's why I was hoping to take you into the alleyway to show you the change.
I was there.
In the alley?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have the driveway with it kind of tilts, and then there's a big fence behind me.
I don't recall the fence. There's a bush next to the smallest driveway.
That's me.
That's ours.
Yeah. So it's not really a driveway, it's kind of like a ramp to the garage.
So I basically have one parking space. Now, this is about safety, and I fully respect everything that everybody is bringing, but this is also about financial bearing. So if you can imagine, we put our house on the market because we can't park there. The realtor can't even pull up in front of our house to show the house. So what happens when your highest priced houses drop in value, that literally trickles down the stream. And Belmont, Eagle Park being one of the most, sought after neighborhoods in Belmont, this is a much wider, I believe, than just the parking and the safety. So that's just one side. I absolutely don't want to take anything away from this is a safety or hazard, but hopefully that there is a compromise. So my suggestion is, let's take 9 months with the 20 miles per hour speed reduction, parking on the outside curve, and we can reevaluate after that time. And that gives us time to either get our houses on the market or get a Plan B. And my feeling is that the 20 miles per hour will take care of most of the problem. I know that the case was stated that we're crossing the center lines, and that's in violation of state law, but our entire neighborhood is in violation of state law. So that would be my request, that we could come to a compromise and where everybody wins for at least a temporary time until we can come back to this, revisit this. And to Kathy's point, it gives us an option for the homeowners that bought in 2007 with the intent, or with the understanding that we would be able to park on the street. So I don't know anybody who wants to buy a $400,000 house with one parking spot. And that's the reality of it.
My concern is if a kid gets hit by a car and dies tomorrow out there.
Absolutely.
I just refuse to follow state law and the recommendations of our police department. Plus, your neighborhood came to us asking us to make the neighborhood safer. I'm not sure, I don't really feel comfortable voting in any other direction but in support of state law and public safety. And I couldn't sleep at night if something happened. I'm happy to compromise we can't knock in the road so you guys can park, but your HOA can't. I'm happy to do that, or I'm happy to reach out to the school board about leasing that other piece of property. But as far as me, I don't even know why this is here to me to vote on if we're in violation of law, because there's no way I feel comfortable supporting that. And if I'm outnumbered, I'll keep my mouth shut and move on, but that's my view.
I guess something else I just kind of wanted to mention. I got the feeling from Parks at our last council meeting that there might be some theoretical liability for the city now that we're on notice about this, and if we don't do anything, it wouldn't take a very creative plaintiff attorney to figure that out. That's something else to consider too, I think. You've got the safety issues, you've got the liability for the city. I think that, what is the feasibility of cutting into the sidewalk like they were talking about?
So this street's been turned over to the city.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So you've got a 6 foot or 8, I think on the,
How wide, so the road's 24 feet, is that right? 24, 25?
Yeah.
How wide's the road got to be to have on-street parking on one side?
it would need to be, I think, on-street parking spaces are about 8 feet wide. So you've
Okay.
got an 8-foot planter strip and then a 5-foot sidewalk. So we'd have to remove all the trees on that side of the street and
You would have to do it?
Well, I would say no, it's not a city issue, it's a neighborhood association,
Okay.
and they would need to do it at their expense. But they would need to get our approval because it's our street. And we're having a separate discussion about tree preservation, so here we would want to cut down our street trees, replace them with parking spaces. That's going to put parking right up to the sidewalk. So you'd have to shift the curb. It would be very expensive. I don't know that you're going to get many parking spaces. I don't know that view's worth the climb, but that's certainly something you could offer to the neighborhood if they're willing to take that up. Alternatively, it was discussed at the council meeting about approaching the Gaston County Board of Education to see if they could use some of the school property and have parking off of that other private alley. Again, I would say that's a neighborhood issue, not a city issue.
Right.
Adrian, can I speak to?
Of course. Well, it's up to the,
Yeah, that's fine.
I just work here.
This is the first time I've been to you. I'm Allison Eager, and I also own a home on Assembly Street. I've been in the neighborhood about 5 years. And I've seen it built out and some of these issues created as we've gotten further neighborhood congestion. I'm actually here in support of the recommendations that the HOA has come up with. I know folks on our board have worked really long and hard to study these things and listen to neighbors and try to prevent what's a pretty bad situation. I am particularly concerned about people parking in intersections and not being able to get through intersections and traffic to pass. because I have seen this cause accidents in our neighborhood, and I have almost been hit in our neighborhood in the curve of Assembly because there's no line of sight around one lane of cars. I do think that there is some state guidance on parking at intersections being legal, but there's a lack of signage throughout our whole neighborhood, both in the curve on Assembly, because I understand we're still working out, what the final determination there's going to be, but also in some intersections in the neighborhood. Some we've gotten signs for, but others there aren't. We do have a particularly large amount of visitors in our neighborhood, and we have a large flow of traffic through the neighborhood because of the school. So anytime there's a school event, our neighborhood is just littered with cars, right? And there's no way we could ever house all those cars into spots. So parking will always be an issue, but those folks don't know where to park in our neighborhood unless we have formal rules and there are signs put into place. But both the intersection in front of my home, which is the John Galt Assembly one that's come up today, and the Assembly curve are both very dangerous areas for residents, and it becomes even more dangerous when you have lots of school folks in the neighborhood parking. They don't know where to park in their parks in the intersections, and just adding to the volume. So I would ask you guys to prioritize safety over convenience today. This has been an issue for years, and we just have had the benefit of getting the HOA board from the developer pass over to the homeowners, where we've had homeowners spend a ton of man hours and the board to try to come up with some recommendations to prevent bad things from happening in the neighborhood. I know parking is a concern. I know home values are a concern. I have those concerns too because I live there. But a lot of folks have garage space. Everybody's different. Everybody's situated differently, and there are probably 200 stories in Eagle Park about their personal parking situation. But a lot of folks do have garage space that they do not use that they could be using to park their cars. There is also a parking lot in front of the clubhouse at the bottom of Assembly that could provide some extra parking, and there is a parking lot that is to be created, which will house a small amount of cars beside the townhomes that is new, that's being added. So I am concerned about safety. I've lived there since almost the inception of the new Eagle Park, and just wanted to share my thoughts. Thanks.
And so just to follow up with your comment, the committee recommended in favor of all of the work that the HOA board did, and the city council approved that. So you'll be seeing a ton of signs popping up here in the next, couple weeks, I guess?
Yeah, so that's already.
Yes.
Because you were stating to almost backtrack and not approve anything except for a speed limit, but.
Well, no, we're doing this because the homeowners association requested it, so this has ended up being.
Yeah, I'm part of the homeowners
it's-
association. And I know it's not something that anybody wants to deal with. Trust me, I didn't want to spend my free time writing a proposal to talk to you guys to do this, but it is definitely needed because as the community has grown, it is no signage has become a real issue, not only for us, but for the safety vehicles that are trying to access us. So it is definitely a necessity to have this addressed in some form. So I'm not trying to say how you guys should vote or anything like that, but we appreciate it being addressed finally, so.
I'm sorry about your parking. I am. And I went out and looked, and I heard from everybody, and I feel more comfortable just moving with the police department. And I hope if there is a solution that we have resources here at City Hall and staff to connect any dots and work with you going forward. But I'll make a motion to just approve the HOA's recommendation and Sergeant Buchanan's recommendation.
So for both the intersection of John Galt and Assembly, and no park on either side of the curve of Assembly.
Yeah, love to take credit for this one.
Yes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, and all that means is if you guys still have a concern issue, you need to come to the meeting and address it with the whole council. But we're looking at the safety piece of it, because that's what our committee is public safety. It's not that we don't like the homeowners, that our priority is that piece of it.
And so that'll go to City Council on February the 3rd.
What about and the same for the John Galt?
Yes. Yes. So both items will go to the City Council February 3rd. And we'll put it on the regular agenda so that you'll have an opportunity for public comment, like you did at the January meeting. Thank you.
So much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
to the next item. This comes to us,
That's why I signed up for city council, so I can
Yes.
take people's parking spots.
Okay, I guess we need to keep the door open, though, don't we?
one of the doors.
Okay, one, okay.
So the next item is a discussion of fire department response time, particularly relating to medical calls. This came up, we had a meeting with newly elected council members Seelinger and Heffron and all the department heads. And so Councilman Seelinger had a question about response times with the fire department from 911 for the EMS calls. So you've got a very thorough report from the fire department in your packet, so I'll turn it over to the fire chief.
Yeah, that's what we get, we have an engineer in charge.
Careful about asking the fire department questions.
So basically, in that travel memo that I sent you, we can say, cut it real short and say that average response time for EMS is 6 minutes on emergencies. But
Is that good or bad?
That's, well, their GM's written goals and objectives for 2020 is they want a 10-minute.
Okay.
And if
Can
you...
somebody live through that?
Sir? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well...
Depends what it is, right?
Right.
Like, what about like a heart attack?
Well, let me just go through some of this.
Okay.
And you'll see that the more severe the call is, the quicker they're getting there.
Got it.
That's what you're gonna see. So, if we just kind of, the interesting piece of this is they respond to about 48,000 calls a year. They offset 80% of their calls through revenue generation. 80% of their calls, 80% of $14 million,
The ambulance rides.
the ambulance rides, $800
That's like
a pop.
$800-900 bucks. I was gonna say, wrote that check.
The other thing that's interesting, when you look at the middle of the page where it says Gaston County EMS totals, so in 19, they said they went to 30,895 calls, but they only transported 12,790 times. So there's a lot of ambulances going to stuff that they probably don't need to be going to. But that's just knowing the system and...
This is county.
This is
Well,
county,
so-
it is. Then the other number that's worth noting, in the FY19, occurrences were all units on call, none available, 675. So, 675 times in the county last year, all the trucks was tied up. So, is it gonna be a time when it's gonna be a 12-minute, 15-minute, 16-minute, 20-minute? Yes. According to that number, yes, it is. So,
As traffic gets worse.
so then, if we go to the second page and we'll kind of dive in and show you what actually happened in Belmont. So in Belmont, in the South Point Station, we've got a QRV truck with a paramedic in it. They rent a space in our shared facility on South Point Road, and it's got a QRV in it. And then out here at 700 Eagle Road, we've got a paramedic truck and a basic truck. So Belmont's covered pretty well. But in saying that, you notice that they use a system status management to move trucks around. So as calls are coming in, trucks are moving all the time in the county. So if Gastonia don't have no trucks, something's gonna come from down here and go over there. They're moving trucks all the time. So, but Belmont is still doing good. So in the middle of the page where it says EMS data review, so A-level calls are, they're still emergency calls, but they're a headache. They're minor stuff. So 11.5 minutes. And then B-level calls, 7.5. 7.5. C-level calls is 11. D-levels is 5.6. And then E-level calls is 3.8. So
Is that like a heart attack or something?
that is.
Okay, all right.
And then we support the EMS side at certain calls. So, last year, I'm at the bottom of the page now, our call volume was 1,256 calls. When you break that out, 501 of them was some type of rescue or EMS call. So 41% of what I do, what we provide to the citizens, is they should be doing it. But we get there faster. So basically what we try to do is say, okay, what can we make a difference on? So if you look at the bottom of the page there, allergy reactions, where we may go out and pop them with an epi, burns, COs, cardiac arrest, drownings, falls, industrial machinery incidents, overdose and poison, traffic transportation accidents, and unconscious fainting is the type of calls that we respond to automatic with them.
Because those are the ones you think you can make an immediate difference on
Right.
by a minute or two, or...
Exactly.
Okay.
So there was 333 incidents in the city. So if we average all those times, it was 6.25 for the gyms units. And then if you look at ours, it was 5.6. And we can't, as we start tying up a fire truck with our 3 resources, and once we make contact with that patient, you gotta stay with them. You can't abandon them, so that truck's gonna be tied up there. And then that house fire's gonna come in, and that's what I'm here for, and the south truck's gonna have to come to it. So I'm gonna have so it's a balancing act, and I think we're doing good. I feel good about what we're doing. But I think the important takeaway from this would be, as you get citizen complaints, they have a quality assurance person at gyms, and if we could get the information from that person and send it to them and do a quality review and just see what happened. So there's going to be one-off calls, always, especially if you've got 675 times when all the trucks are tied up. But for the most part, I think if they're doing averages of 12 minutes, 26 seconds in FY 219 in the whole county, and we're getting 6, we're okay with their program, is the way I see it.
Okay. And Mark, I
Yep.
think you'd have, does that answer?
Oh, no, yeah, this is great. It's actually a lot more than I was expecting, so thank you.
You still looking for property in North Belmont?
Our city manager is working diligently with that.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a solution.
Good. I mean, I just know that's part of it, and you're good on fire trucks?
Very good. And I'll just go ahead and
Just bought one.
Yeah, don't encourage it.
They're expensive.
He asked less than,
So on that note,
Yeah, but his asks are.
it's a $500,000 fire trucks.
we were, so we did our North Carolina rating on Tuesday of last week, and that rating went well, and I would, based off of the information, I think that our rating's gonna drop again with that one. So I don't know how much it's gonna drop, but it's very favorable with the information that I've seen.
You need to explain how long they normally stay here for what they did and what they actually stayed.
Yeah, so we were 7 hours for that one, and that's normally a 2-day inspection.
So that means they were organized.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing? Are they happy?
I don't know, they're probably working too hard.
Is morale good?
It's good. It's good. So hopefully, in 60 days, we'll get that new rating.
Is that the rating that impacts homeowners insurance
It
rates?
is.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now, we're a 4. We received that 4 in 2011, and so now we'll either go at 3 or a high 2.
Does that ladder truck help with the rating?
Yes. all of this is gonna be directly related to things y'all have done, too. There's pieces that we could do, but until you added some staff, you added a ladder truck, so,
About what about $950,000? Was that the one that's that much?
Ladder truck? That wasn't that much, was it?
no, we got it for
We got it on.
I know, but
we got it on
but
special.
normally that's what it costs.
it's a
We gotta
$1 million
get the-
truck.
Yeah, they got it.
$1 million, okay, normally.
Somebody said that we didn't need a ladder truck because we don't have any tall buildings. I think they forgot about all the houses that are like next to each other.
well.
Well, you gotta shoot the water into the middle of the buildings. That's the part we have to do.
When that townhome down on River Drive caught fire, and that's a 6-unit or 5-unit, and the people never come out of the last 3, and we burnt that one all the way off the end of it.
Wow.
And that ladder truck's what did
Where's
it.
River Drive? Is that down by Marina? The blue ones.
Yes.
So,
Good work.
Thank you.
good, thanks.
That's some positive stuff, huh? Good request. What's next?
The next item is information from the police chief about organizational structure and some changes he would like to consider making. So this is what I added.
Few words as possible.
Hey,
We had like dinner tonight we gotta go to.
well, that's all right. We got them not, I did not want you guys to have to rehash what you'd already told us before. That was not worthwhile. So that's what, not that we don't think you're important, but you did need to go back through that part of it.
Thank you. I'll make this very quick.
Get the timer out.
Yes. I am asking, if you would look on the chart there, you see we have the chief of police, you have the assistant chief that is not filled, is vacant. You have a captain over patrol and a captain over support services that right now says it's vacant. All I am asking to do here is I would like to fill the assistant chief spot and to freeze the support services captain spot.
So that's a position that's just been with some turnover, right?
Which,
The assistant chief was Chad Hawkins, and then we had a vacancy with the police chief. And so, remember I promoted Chad to...
You were here when Skip was here?
for
the month.
5 weeks
Yeah.
to the day.
That was good succession planning. And so, once
That's one
Chad-
way of looking at it.
Well, you gotta have somebody to fill in. So once Chad was promoted from assistant chief to chief, we did not fill his then vacant assistant chief position.
So this, I'm not asking for no, I just want to feel for succession planning, the assistant chief job and just freeze that other one for the future.
What's the
Make it
pay scale
easier.
difference?
That would be max, about a 5% increase from that
You
captain's
think you get better
position
people with
to
that title? That's what I remember hearing the last time I did this a couple years ago, was you get better applicants with an assistant chief title than a captain title?
Well,
You gonna hire within, or what's your plan?
well, we've been doing succession planning to go from within. So, with the people that we've hired, most of your agencies our size, they have an assistant chief or deputy chief or, that rank, and I've just run it with the captains and the lieutenants. So, just kind of formatting a succession planning for my departure one day, hopefully, not soon, but that'd be up to the manager here, the fire chief.
What are your thoughts, Adrian?
No, it's good, and so if you remember when Chief Clark asked for the assistant chief position, and with the intent that would help kind of manage the day-to-day operations of the department, so the chief can focus on bigger picture items, and so we never really got to that point, but that was the intent. And so I think we're in good shape now. It does make sense to have that assistant chief, just to kind of help sort of manage down and help with all the aspects of the department, so that the police chief can focus on the CLEA and what's going on in policing around the country and latest trends and kind of managing on from that perspective. But also having somebody that could step in if something were to happen to the chief.
So would all those units that report up through the support services captain then report up through the assistant chief?
Yeah, those will be kind of spread out as they are now. You'll see the lieutenant over support services handles a lot of that. Everybody has a lot more roles that they take on, and
Are you gonna slide somebody kind of as a buffer between the assistant chief and the records bureau? Like, is that, are you gonna,
yeah, so the patrol captain obviously will handle that on that side, and the patrol lieutenant, and then on the other side, the lieutenant and that assistant chief, like I say, it's just, they're still gonna kind of fill that role as the captain.
okay.
We're not gonna lose that, they're just gonna assume those roles and some others until, you know, as we expand and grow, which obviously we will. That's why I don't want to, that's why we froze the assistant chief, so, and I didn't ask for that at the time, but I just need to reverse those roles, and we need to keep that on the chart for the future. I don't think we should move it, but I don't need to fill it right now.
Okay. Don't have any issues, you guys have any issues? I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I did have a question for you outside of this. Do you have a battery charger if a car's battery dies?
We have a jump pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, some people do, some don't. We have a couple of them at the
I just, every time I see a car like down, I told you about the one, it was down there between CVS and Walgreens in the turning lane at 7:30 a.m. and the battery's dead, and it's like, I know we don't, like, it's a pain to go and do that kind of stuff, but it's a lot better than having cars backed up to Watson.
No, we will assist people. We just can't jump a vehicle off, like with jumper cables.
Okay.
Because of the equipment in our car. It can
Gotcha.
send a surge back through and do
So you got a
that.
jump pack?
But we have a jump pack. If it,
Okay.
we try to help people if we can, or we call somebody else, or we call the fire department, or, you
Yeah.
know, other people. We try to help them to get.
That's it, like, if
We'll
it-
push them out of the road if we need to.
Yeah,
If it-
for my tax dollars, get their car working and get them out of my way.
Yeah. Right, it makes it a lot
Like, I'm not worried about the same guy doing it over and over and over. I'm
Yeah.
more worried about right in front of my car.
Yeah, yeah, it makes us, it makes our jobs a lot more difficult if we don't get them out of the road. So we like to get them out of the road.
All right, I was just curious, because I had seen that one and
Well,
told you about it. I was like,
Yes,
gotta get this guy out of here.
I didn't have private messenger
Yeah.
until about a week after you said that. So I had a bunch of private messages. So when I saw that, I was
Well,
like,
there's a cop behind it whenever I came back.
okay.
That's a bad spot for that. The guy asked me if I could jump him off, but I had the two kids in the back of the truck. I was trying to get them, I'm like, I'm not gonna sit here and do this. So I tried to get you to come out and do it, but.
Yeah. Usually somebody calls and I'll sure go out there and help them out.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. The next item is consider approval of the job description for crossing guard.
This is just a formality. We have crossing guards, they have their duties. Sergeant Buchanan goes over their duties, they actually train them. But the thing is, we did not have a job description actually and we had to have a job description for every position that we have for our CLIA accreditation and everything. So we just needed to put, it's just a formality to add that to our job descriptions. And it is a part-time paid position, seasonal.
Yeah, we just handed this out, so take a minute, and if you need more time, that's,
So do we need to make a motion to approve this then?
and then I can put it
Okay.
on
All
the
right.
city council agenda for February 3rd.
I think it's just because the council has to approve all job descriptions,
Right.
correct?
And what are we paying this person? Am I seeing this or not seeing this on it? Because I know it's not that much money.
It is,
It's tough.
not at all, it makes it very difficult to fill, $10.
$10 an hour?
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
But the problem is you only get like two hours a day, so, and it's split up.
So if I retire from teaching, then you're hardly $10 an hour, right?
Yes, ma'am, because we're always begging for crossing guards,
Okay.
that's for sure.
And
It's
you-
not an easy job to fill.
No,
You
it's
can no
not.
longer wear
And
pajamas.
you can no longer wear pajamas. You must wear a uniform.
I'm glad we don't have.
You can't roll out of bed.
Okay.
How many police positions do you have total?
Full-time, right now, I think it's 37.
How many of them,
I think it was 38 and I split two of them.
how many of them
I think it's
require a college
5%
education versus
total
not?
sworn and
College
unsworn.
education.
52.
Yes.
College education?
College education versus
Well,
non-college
okay.
education, what's required? What's your makeup?
Well, I have those numbers because I actually have who has a degree, who has their advanced certificate, all those things, because I don't have it with me. But we actually have, we probably have 12 out of those that probably have education from master's to associate's degrees. But a lot of our officers have their advanced certificate, which is the highest certificate achievement in law enforcement, which you could kind of parallel with a 4-year degree. And but But since I took it, that's something we really look at as educating. We have incentives for them. And I have several, 3 or 4, maybe 5, that's in school now, trying to get their degrees. Because they know that if you want to promote up, you got to have your degree. So that's,
So like your job requires college education?
it doesn't, but I think he likes it.
We're about to have one more when we can start this off pushing him, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so we really.
Patrol officer does not require it.
Yeah. But if you want to move up into the ranks, then there's a lot of qualifications and a degree is required in that. That's for the succession plan, and it's, you know, and as long as that can work and you've got the, sometimes you have to overlook that for other things, the experience levels and certifications and stuff if you have to, but my goal is to do the education.
Cool.
All right, you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we approve the school crossing guard position as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
And I have applications if y'all need one.
If you know of anybody
I'm not planning on that
that
right
can
now.
pass the background check and not wear pajamas,
Adrian, would
to
it,
work from 7 to 8 a.m.
would it be possible to have Shelley look at information about traditional neighborhood developments, because I'm sure this is going to come up. They're not all created equal, because of course my husband's been involved in that too, so that we have whatever information is out there, and if we talk about the state law piece versus what traditional neighborhood developments have and don't have in other areas. Sure. I think some of the streets are wider in some of the traditional neighborhood developments even here.
Yeah, we can put something together and do a workshop and just kind of talk about neighborhood design and, you know,
Yeah, I'm talking about before the meeting in February, because this is going to come up, that
and just get some-
part of things, so that
I'll see
we
if she
have
can get you
correct
something
information
that I can
from,
just send out to the council.
yeah, okay.
It's gonna be in the, land use ordinance, isn't it?
Right.
That's what-
Where
yeah.
it says, this street cross-section, you can do this with, this
Yeah.
street cross-section.
So,
There's 4 of them?
right, so we have different street cross sections in the zoning ordinance, and some, if you just have the 2 travel lanes, they're obviously going to be a narrower street. But if you, so even within Eagle Park, so I live on Blueberry Street, and we have the 2 travel lanes, but we also have 2 on-street parking lanes that are kind of the bulb out. So I've got a really wide street right in front of my house because I've got parking on either side. So even within a T&D, you can have a varying street width, but it's based on whether or not you have on-street parking or kind of bulb outs for off-street. Street width is something we've been talking about as long as I've been here. We have some really narrow streets, and some in the really compact neighborhoods, we have some really wide streets where you could raise fire trucks on in other neighborhoods.
When the philosophy was, and there was Sam, my husband was in development on both ends of it, so you have Penstowe with the wide roads. The traditional neighborhood development idea was you narrowed it and you slowed the traffic down. That was one of the main reasons to do that type of thing. And so there's, opinions on both sides of it.
She needs to rip the bush out and widen her sidewalk. Everybody else has garages and driveways. It was her, like, I understand her house, I mean, it's small, but that's what she needs to do. I don't know what else to tell them.
And, probably 90% of our traffic, or our parking problems in the neighborhoods can be solved if people use their garages for car storage and not.
Exactly. And Sergeant Buchanan, when we were out there, I saw, it was a Yukon coming, and then there was a car parked over here, and then a Tacoma pulling in, and there was a little, just while I was standing there, and school wasn't in session or anything, and if everybody's driving, small cars and park over, there'd be one thing, but everybody's got these huge vehicles, and you can't, if everybody drove slow, it'd be fine too, but everybody drives too fast and too big of vehicles, and so, yeah.
So we finished?
That's all that we have.
Okay. Meeting adjourned then.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys over at the thing later. Glad the HOA made us the bad guys.
Yeah, Mark, one of the things that happened, all of a sudden, Stowe Road ended up being 25 miles an hour. We didn't request it. So the state, because of whatever incident, Howard the county was, and then we found out that the streets are all supposed to be 25 miles an hour. I don't know what everybody's in the upgrade, because they didn't have 25. I was at 25 miles an hour. Sometimes you open it up and you find out. So it was not just the state, it was the city piece of it. And then, of course, Keener Boulevard, we never asked to go down to 35. All right, because it
Yeah, I've
should
heard
be
of-
45-mile-an-hour road.
And it's built like one,
Oh,
too.
it is, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous, so
You got this
sometimes.
huge, almost like a freeway, and it's 35.
Yeah.
You almost can't help yourself either.
No, it's really,
I've caught myself, you know, it's like, you look down and it's like, oh, man.
uh-huh.